What has this offseason taught us about the direction of the offensive line market in the NFL? What should we be keeping an eye on over the next 12 months? We're breaking that down today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode of Locked On NFL Scouting is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for the parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay
Let's
Guaranteed
ride.
Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
eBay Nation. Let's ride.
eBay Motors Nation.
eBay Motors Nation.
Yeah.
Let's ride. Joe, I love it when a plan comes together, especially when you didn't intend for it to be a plan. I did a lot of offensive line free agency market research back in like May, to the tune of, I went as far back, if I go chronologically, to 2013. Okay, so we have a substantial sample size here. And the objective was, I want to identify every contract that was signed with a player going to a new team that played on the offensive line, that signed a contract that the AAV was equal to or greater than 3.5% of that year's salary cap. And I wanted to identify how successful are these contracts. And we alluded to it when we talked about wide receivers. And we talked about the trend across the league is you have more players that come into the league and they're ready to contribute immediately at the skill positions because of what the lower levels of football are doing for the youth as they are growing with the game. And the counterpoint of that is you have this scarcity of offensive linemen. Never mind that you have to have 5 starting caliber linemen. And ideally you would have, 8 to feel really good about your offensive line unit as a whole. It is with the unit where you would argue that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts because of how cohesive that group has to play together. But nevertheless, and we've got a 10-year sample size on a table here that we can look at and discuss what this market and success rate has done. And that's so interesting because teams need these players. So when an offensive lineman hits the free agency market, you want to ask some questions, right? Because it's like, hey, you're a starting caliber player. What's under the hood that we need to figure out? What's the fine print? And I think that's always the concern with veteran offensive linemen that hit the market. But we're going to explore that here today on the show.
A lot of good information coming your way today, folks. We'll start by considering the big contracts this offseason, and I'm sure Kyle will be able to tie in what happened throughout the, last 10 years is what you have basically compiled. But we had Juwan Taylor, 4 years, $80 million. Mike McGlinchey, 5 years, $87.5. Orlando Brown, 4 years, $64. Jason Kelsey, 1 year, $14.2. Ben Powers got 4 years, $51. Caleb McGarry, 3 years, $34. Nate Davis, 3 years, $30. Andre Dillard, 3 years, $29. Isaac Siamalo, 3 years, $24. Andrew Wiley, 3 years, $24. We also had some big extensions that were handed out. Of course, Chris Lindstrom got a massive deal.
Get the bag.
5 years, $102. Laramie Tunsil, 3 years at 25 per. Shaq Mason, 3 years, $36, and Ethan Pochik, 3 years, $18. So some good money being spent on offensive linemen this offseason.
So good news is it looks like when I did the research project versus what you just did the rundown on, through the Wiley contract was all of the contracts that are 3.5% of the cap or more with the player going to a new team.
Which was basically, I gave all of them that were north of 8 million or more per season.
And the Kelce McGarry deals are obviously in here as players that returned to their old teams as well, but technically, like, McGarry hit free agency before he came back. So historically speaking, the number of contracts that I had down in my research, and it was between over the cap and Spot Track combined, tried to combine those resources. It's 150 players across the previous 10 seasons. So you have a very significant sample size. And the information that I collected, Joe, was, if you made a Pro Bowl, how many Pro Bowls you made with your new team, what your single season high AV was with the new contract, your single season high PFF grade after the new contract was signed, and whether or not you were within 2 years of your final snap in the NFL when you put pen to paper to sign your new contract. What do you want to know historically about offensive line?
What are your big takeaways from the data? Like, what are the key things that stand out to you from putting this together and seeing it, and what conclusions did you draw?
So I'm going to read some names to you. Alejandro Villanueva, Eric Flowers, Brian Bulaga, Ryan Khalil, Matt Khalil, Mike Pouncey, Weston Richburg, Spencer Long, Josh Sitton, TJ Lang, Matt Khalil again. So you got 2 contracts in this stretch. Luke Yokel, Menelik Watson, Orlando Franklin, and Anthony Collins. That is 15 players. So 10% of contracts over the last 10 years went to players who were within 2 years of their final snap in the NFL. So 1 out of every 10 contracts that was signed over that 10-year sample size. Apply that to the players that we know sign new deals here. And you have, statistically speaking, and odds are it's probably going to be Jason Kelce, right? With
I would say
what
2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty safe. But some of these other players flame out. Like Eric Flowers was young, and he got $10 million per, which was over 5%. The number of players who would go on to make a Pro Bowl after signing a new deal,
that was equal to 3.5% of the salary cap, right? So there's a qualifier here.
There's 20 players. So you have almost an equal chance of making a Pro Bowl as you do of being within 2 years of your final snap in the league if you're an offensive lineman that signs a sizable contract to go play with a new team. And I think that is the reinforcement of, if you've got good ones, you're probably not letting them go. A lot of these guys are hitting the market for a reason. Some of it is cost, but some of it is not cost.
You do see some good hits here, man. I'm looking at this list: Joe Thuney, Corey Linsley, Mitch Morse, Ryan Jensen, Andrew Whitworth. I mean, there's some good deals along the way here.
There are some good deals along the way.
Some turd deals along the way.
So I think you apply that knowledge to these players that signed this year's deals.
Ooh.
And I think you ask yourself, okay, like, what is the success rate? How can you forecast the success rate? I feel really good about Caleb McGarry because he's operating in the same system that we've known what he was, right?
Yeah.
There's less forecast and projection there. Nate Davis to Chicago. Do we feel good about that for $10 million? Do we feel good about Andre Dillard? And most consistently, based off of what, as I've looked through the data, Joe, The hits are big time investments. The misses are when you're overpaying for the middle class. And I think some of these contracts that we look at, the Ben Powers, Nate Davis, I would include Mike McGlinchey in there. I think those are the kinds of contracts that have a threat of really not aging gracefully as we see them continue their careers in their new teams.
Very interesting. We'll obviously talk a lot more about that here in just a moment. But first, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're facing tough choices and the path forward is not always clear. So whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while navigating life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way that we do until we talk things through. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible and suited to your schedule. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Okay.
Well, look, I think that conclusion of don't overpay for the middle class is what really sticks with me from everything that we went through. And as you were going through that, I'm thinking, okay, how do we apply that to this year's where you kind of have this group of guys that are going to be very close to the end, and you look at, like you mentioned, Jason Kelsey as one of those candidates, maybe Isaac Siamalu is one of those candidates. But then you also look at the high end and you feel pretty good about that. You're going to have at least one or two Pro Bowlers there. I'm sure Chris Lindstrom will probably check that box for us at least.
But
and
at
then
least he's going back to the same team.
Right. So that doesn't even qualify for the actual data. Like who is the Pro Bowler here that went to a new team? I have a hard time finding that. Juwan Taylor, Orlando Brown, those are probably your best candidates.
And really because of the offense that they're playing with as a whole, not so much about the individual player.
Right. You could just be the pretty good left tackle for the Bengals or Chiefs, and that probably gets you to the Pro Bowl sometimes, right?
So just to reinforce that, if you look at contracts that fell between 5.5% of the cap for the average salary and 4%, which is kind of, again, the middle road of these contracts that we are measuring, that's 35 players. You have five that made a Pro Bowl. And those players were Brandon Brooks, home run signing for the Eagles. And that's on the upper echelon of this cutoff. Larry Warford with the Saints. Those two guys got 6 Pro Bowls between them with their new teams, but they were both over 5% of the cap. So if you cut it down to 5 and go, okay, what's the Pro Bowl success rate of 5% and down? It's Luis Vasquez with the Broncos. Remember Luis Vasquez with the Broncos?
Yeah,
he had that incredible single season, and that was it. It was like one and done or they think he had 2 quality seasons. You had Mike Pouncey, 1 year, 1 Pro Bowl with the Chargers at the tail end of his career, and he got it on name, if we're being honest, because I remember following that one closely because he had left the Dolphins. And then you had Josh Sitton, who got 1 with the Bears after leaving Green Bay in 2016. So, again, if you go under 5%, it's one thing to say $20 million offensive tackle, $17.5 million offensive tackle, $16 million offensive tackle. Your 5% and under club is Nate Davis, Andre Dillard, Isaac Siamalu, and Andrew Wiley. And I don't think there's any Pro Bowl upside with those players, but they are sizable commitments, particularly Nate Davis at guard for $10 million and Andre Dillard, who's been a career swing tackle.
Yeah. I think you're hopeful with both of those guys that there's some ceiling for them to develop into, but it's a projection.
Sure. So that's the risk of getting into the open market to build your offensive line. is you don't usually find value. And even the guys at the top of the charts, I mean, it's an almost 9% investment in your cap to sign a player. And the Chiefs, to their credit, they signed Joe Thuney and Jawan Taylor. Those are the two biggest cap commitments in free agency over the last 10 years, 11 years. The Chiefs have done them both in the last 3 years. Yeah.
Say that out loud again.
The Kansas City Chiefs, over the last 11 years, have committed the 2 largest percentage of cap free agent contracts for a player going to a new team in free agency on the open market.
That's significant. And you combine that with total steals in the draft and Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith.
And got them at incredible values because Creed was
second round pick.
He played at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't have an answer.
There was 0% reason for Creed Humphrey to fall into the 60s.
Had everything: size, athleticism, wrestling background, good tape,
box.
Young. Like I can't figure it out to say.
And then Trey Smith, obviously 5-star player who fell because of medical questions.
Significant.
And played guard.
Yeah. So when we look ahead to some of these notable expiring contracts for 2023, it's an interesting group. I think it's headlined by a couple of Miami Dolphins in Robert Hunt and Connor Williams, assuming they're both still expiring after the end of the season. You got Jonah Williams and that situation. The Bengals, Cesar Ruiz, a former first-round pick. Jermaine Illumineur, who's kind of finding himself, took a little time. Terrence Steele, Kevin Zeitler, Evan Brown. It's not that robust of a list. I mean, there's certainly a bunch of functional.
Steele.
Yeah, Terrence Steele, Trent Brown.
Cesar Ruiz.
I mean, Jason Kelsey signed a 1-year deal. I think he'll either retire or keep signing those with the Eagles. Josh Nijman, who's been this very important swing tackle for the Packers. Does somebody pay him to be a starter? You could see it happening, right?
Trying to think of who else is like the
Andrews Pete. I'm sure the Saints could not be more happy about his deal finally being up.
Right, man. That, I mean, and that one kind of raised some eyebrows when it.
Yeah, what was that?
First came through. What about a guy like Kevin Dotson?
It's a good name. Yeah.
Younger player. I mean, he's 28. He's not young, but he's kind of. Pittsburgh has made a conscious effort to upgrade their offensive line, but like he has been a starting caliber player.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a guard spot that, like, if you're coming in with these contracts, can he do what Trey Turner's done and kind of convert these 1-year contracts annually and like go be a starter for somebody? Like, I absolutely think so.
Andre James is going to have a big opportunity this year with the Raiders.
Yes.
He's going to hit the market.
And if he doesn't sign, then I would love to see Kevin Dotson go sign with the Raiders.
Phil Haynes, Seattle, he'll be a starter for them. Titus Howard's going to hit the market, scheduled to.
You mentioned Onwenu, right?
No, I didn't see that one.
Michael Onwenu.
Really?
So that's your Robert.
Is he a regular unrestricted free agent?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was on their original, like he was a 6th-round pick and he made the roster and started. This is year 4.
Wow. That's spicy. That'll be a big one.
Well, the bad news is that for everybody else, the Pats have a ton of cap space, right? Like they'll get him locked in, no problem.
They should.
I would rather have Michael Onwenu for 13 per than Ben Powers.
Oh, there's no question. Those guys are the same caliber.
So the question is, how much can Onwenu leverage the Powers deal, and how much more could he get for the Patriots to prevent getting him to free agency?
I think that Powers deal is going to matter for a lot of guys, right? Like Robert Hunt as well.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to have that contract.
And look, Connor Williams held out of minicamp. He's reporting to training camp. He might hold in, but so he's not holding out of training camp. But like there's a world where he played center and was one of the better centers in football last year. Like he has a legitimate argument to claim that he deserves top 5 center money on the market, which is about $11 million per season.
And Cesar Ruiz is very young. That's something that's also standing out to me whenever I'm looking at this. Like he's going to 24 years old
right now.
Right. Well, he
Or
just turned 24. Yeah, he'd be
25 when he hits the
25-year-old
mark.
free agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Ezra Cleveland? Did you mention Ezra Cleveland too? That's
Keep
another
going.
younger player.
He's a fascinating one because we've seen the Vikings be very into the guys that this regime has brought in, and that wouldn't be one of them. But he feels like we'll see.
We'll talk about all these guys, and what's going to happen is 90% of them are going to re-sign with the team that they're on.
Because they should. A lot of them should.
The exciting players that are scheduled to hit free agency that are entering into a contract 2 or potentially contract 3, they'll get locked in. I think the question and the challenge that we have to identify is, who do we think the players are who don't get into those buckets, and why? Who are the players that fall through the cracks and don't get re-signed, and why?
Happens all the time.
Right. And it's a super high risk because the implications of having an offensive line that falls apart are monumental. They kill you offensively, which obviously everybody knows, even if we don't want to give offensive linemen their flowers as frequently as we should. I think is that a good segue to predictions?
Yeah.
Are your predictions in pertaining to people who get contracts or people who are with new teams?
Neither.
Lord.
Both.
Right, well, I tried.
Come back. We'll need a quick break, and we'll give you our
Right.
predictions here in just a moment.
Man thought he had the perfect segue lined up, and turns out Joe zigged when I thought he'd zag.
I want to bring up a little something else here as well before we get to these predictions. These 5th-year options, Kyle, these are going to be slam dunks. Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, Christian Darrisaw, Alijah Vera-Tucker.
Yes. Oh, Alijah Vera-Tucker.
That's the most questionable. If he's healthy and plays like he can, that's going to be an easy yes, right?
All I know is I distinctly remember somebody being upset by that decision to draft that player.
I mean, I remember that too. I really do.
It's one of my favorite debates we've ever had.
I'm not wrong about that debate.
Didn't they give up like a 3rd-round pick to go up and get him?
They gave up some stuff.
Comfortably their best offensive
lineman. But
right now.
Kyle, in a vacuum, bringing up that debate doesn't make sense. Like, there's so much context necessary to really appreciate that debate.
Right. Yeah. Go on YouTube and search for the 2021 draft coverage that we had in the middle of the 1st round. They got picked, 14th was when they came up and got him.
Pretty high. It's pretty high.
And you and I were at each other's throats for like 20 minutes over it.
Which I don't understand why you took the position that you did. And maybe you still don't know the answer to that.
Because 3 years later, Alijah Vera-Tucker is comfortably the best offensive lineman on the Jets, and he can play all 5 spots. That's why. We don't got
the debate wasn't with you. The debate wasn't with you. It wasn't with you.
Okay. So we have it's bold prediction time. Maybe not bold prediction, but prediction time.
I don't know. Last time you were pretty bold, so that encouraged me to do some bold things here.
Step out on a limb. Live a little bit.
I have at least one
bold
one.
Down. Good.
I don't have hair let down, but all right. My first prediction here is that we will have a new highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL in terms of AAV. Someone tops Tunsil at 25.
Tunsil's 25.
Yep. And I think what it could be is one of these 5th-year option guys. Sewell, Slater, Darrisaw. Go ahead and get one of them locked up. That's going to be a very fun, the finger pointing office meme. I know that you don't like The Office, but that's going to be a thing.
Did you just spill your drink?
I did, but the top was on, so we're okay. 3rd time I've spilled it this week. I don't think I've ever spilled it previously. 3 times.
My question pertaining to your prediction is that's new dollars, right? Because obviously, if it's a 5th-year option guy.
Yeah, no, it's a new contract.
They will have their 4th year / their 5th year option potentially that could potentially drag that number down.
New money. Yep.
New money. Okay. I don't think that's perfectly reasonable. My first prediction. I should stay away from because I talk myself into let's do and win you as a prediction for dollars. You know what? Let's do that. What is so I'm making this one up off the cuff as we go.
Oh, okay.
What are the highest paid guards in football? You have Lindstrom, Quentin Nelson. Those are 20.5 and 20. Then you have Elton Jenkins at 17, Brandon Scherf at 16.5, Joel Bitonio at 16, Joe Thuney at 16, Wyatt Teller at 14 too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Michael Onwenu will be a top 8 paid guard at this time next year for the New England Patriots.
Okay, so I think that's probably true. My concern here is just like it feels like they've been wishy-washy with Onwenu. Or like, remember he just didn't start 2 years ago?
Yeah. I don't
Just
know
like,
why.
For what?
Why?
For what? He's had weird injuries.
With how good he was as a rookie, too.
He was their utility blocker. They're weird, man.
They're a very weird team. If there's any common sense, the Patriots are what, number 2 in the league in cap space projected for next year right now? Number 1. They have $107 million in cap space. Spend your money and keep your players.
Well, here's the challenge for New England is both of their tackles are expiring contracts, and Onwenu is an expiring contract.
Both their tackles are expiring contracts.
Yes, Reef and Brown.
Well, Trent Brown.
No,
Trent Brown.
You don't care about those players, but they need players to be in those spots, and they're
right.
They're gonna. All these offensive linemen that we're talking about are probably going to be targets of the Patriots, I'm sure.
Well, and I guess what is really fascinating is you consider what the Patriots did with their draft this year. Maybe that's the biggest cold water we could possibly throw in this prediction. What they spend 3 draft picks on this year?
Guards.
Interior offensive lineman.
Trade away Logan Mankins, man. Remember this?
It was Mafi, Jake Andrews, and City Sal.
Do you play the Pro Football Reference grid game?
I have dabbled with Immaculate Grid. Yes.
So you've at least seen it, right?
Yes.
That's all I need to know. So one of the recent ones was finding a Patriots and Buccaneers player, right? The first one that came to mind for me was Logan Mankins, and I really do try to get the rarest answers that I can because anybody could put Tom Brady or Darrell Revis or something. Sure, yeah. 1% picked Logan Mankins.
Really?
1%. I was like, this isn't that rare. This is a really good player. But no, 1%.
Everybody just took the low-hanging fruit. That's the challenge, right? It's very infrequently is it, man, who's a player who
there's sometimes where I just have a complete, I can't come up with a player. And they know what they're doing. They pick teams like Seattle. They pick Pittsburgh and Green Bay. Those teams, not a lot of moving around. You know what I mean?
Who was the one that gave me Minnesota the other day was one that I had a really hard time with a couple of the Minnesota ones.
It's fun though. It's one of my new favorite bedtime routines.
So now I'm worried that I've talked myself out of the Onwenu prediction, but Michael Onwenu will be a top 8 paid guard by somebody. How's that?
All right. Okay. My second one is keep it in the AFC East. We'll keep it with one of our 2 teams. We'll go to your team, the Miami Dolphins. I think both of these Miami Dolphins, Connor Williams and Robert Hunt, get deals that pay them north of $10 million AAV. Both.
The Hunt one's the fascinating. I think Connor Williams is a lock. And
brother, if Nate Davis is getting 10.
I understand that. But then every once in a while, you'll get another contract that's like, man, how does that work?
Laken Tomlinson got 13.
I understand. And I think Robert Hunt's a better player. I just want to look chronologically for a couple of examples to back my research.
You're going to say Austin Corbett. You could bring up Isaac Siamalu.
Alex Kappa.
Sure. I think Robert Hunt's better than those players. That's why good. I'm glad you find a little bit of resistance because that means I was somewhat bold.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, how many $10 million a year centers are out there? That's pretty spicy too.
For Connor Williams?
Yeah. How many are there? I'm looking right now.
It's Ragnow.
Oh, there's 7 of them.
Yeah, but 11. If you win 11, it would put him 6?
Put him 6th, yeah. Above Whitehair and below McCoy.
And I keep forgetting Eric McCoy's in that stratosphere, but he deserves. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Okay. My question for you is, which one of them is back with the Dolphins? And
I don't know. I don't know. One of them is. You keep one, right? That's got to be the plan.
Yeah, I think there's a group of 4 players with Miami where you're hoping to get 3, you might get 2, and it's Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer. What combination of that can you get the most back for what dollars?
Do you ask yourself, is the question replaceability? Is that what you really have to ask yourself?
Probably.
Because they're all going to be good, expensive players.
Right. I don't think a single player signs a deal now that, I mean, those are all $10+ million a year players.
Yes. In my opinion. Yeah.
So I don't think Connor Williams is easily replaceable. He's responsible for a lot of line protections or a lot of line calls, and he helps call protections for that offense. So I think Connor Williams is going to get the bag. All right. My last one, my last bold prediction. I guess I should make one about a tackle here, right? I accidentally, full disclosure, accidentally deleted where I had my notes put in here. Oh, it's with Jonah Williams. So I think Jonah Williams signs for less than $10 million per season, which is what approximately what he's getting this year. I think the Jonah Williams market will go down.
So you think his highest earning season is going to be this year on the 5th-year option?
Yes, I do.
Man, that'd be disappointing for him, wouldn't it?
It would be, especially because that was kind of the whole, I want to play left tackle, maximize my value. Now it sounds like he's going to play right tackle for the Bengals after all of that fuss that was made.
Yeah, he tried. A lot of these guys tried, man. Buda Baker, right? Kevin Byard,
Saquon Barkley.
Right? Like, what are you doing? They're not winning. We'll see what happens with Chris Jones if he gets his 31 or whatever he wants.
I think he will.
You think so?
Yeah. They have the future spending.
They have the money to do it, but it's like there's a lot of. I mean, you're going to pay him more than AD. I thought just paying in between Quinnen and AD would be sufficient.
Bring him up to 30. I think he'll get something done. I don't know that he'll get the exact dollars that he wants, but bring him to 30. I think he gets that.
Let's go back to this Jonah Williams. I know we're way over time.
No way.
McGlinchey got 17 and a half. Jawan Taylor got 20.
Yeah.
Are we sure Jonah Williams is not like somewhat near that stratosphere?
Let me ask you. Okay. And where
Gary got 11 and a half?
Where on that spectrum do you put Andrew Wiley?
Who got 8?
Andrew Wiley got 3 for 24.
Yeah. I think it's an aggressive take, and I like it.
Jonah's got durability questions that have dogged him. He played with injuries last year. I don't think you're going to get the 5-year contract.
No, I don't think so.
Deal, so like you're talking a 3-year deal, and I think it will be. We'll give you fully guaranteed. Put a lot of it up front.
Does he get like the Eric Fisher deals after he left Kansas City? And I know that Fisher was hurt right when he first left, but he's like 1 year, $10 million.
Fisher in 2021 signed with the Colts for 3.8.
Okay.
Riley Reif signed in Cincinnati, 7.5.
That was a while ago, though.
That was 2021.
Yeah, it feels like a long time.
It's not. George Fant. Maybe George Fant's a good case study. You could be hopeful there. He got 10.
No, I think you provoked a lot of thought and with your prediction. I think it's a great prediction.
Brian Bulaga in 2020 got 10. I keep going.
We'll see. We'll have to document these and revisit them.
Write them all down.
Yeah, maybe next year we do this.
For us.
Yeah, we're right on it.
That's going to do it for us today on the show. Hope you guys enjoyed this discussion around the offensive line market, its trends, kind of some of the trends of the past, what that tells us about the future. We hope that you come back and see us again soon. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We are out of here. Peace.